So, I don't want to put this off any later. I read The Strain and finished it on Monday, 4 days ago. So, it was good. It had some problems, but it was good. Problems first. Early on in the book, or I should give a plot summary first. What this is it's a vampire novel by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan, where basically the premise is that a plane lands, almost everyone inside is dead, and it just turns off and almost everyone inside is dead. And then they, basically from this, vampires emerge. Because spoiler alert, the people inside that are dead are actually vampires. They reanimate. And in the case of the ones that survive, they turn into vampires. And it's about a CDC guy called F something. Not the letter F. It's like, here, let me see if I can find he's called F-E-P-H throughout most of the novel. Let me see if I can get his name. It's probably mentioned. Ephraim. His name mentioned for the first time, actually, pretty late in the book. Page 41. Then again, this is a 600-page book. Anyways, and he basically starts walking around, and he starts, learns that these are vampires, and the vampire plague starts spreading. And he basically does stuff until the ending happens. So, and there's a side plot involving a Latino person, and then there's also an exterminator who exists solely to do things in the later books because he doesn't really have too much of a point here. I mean, he maybe gives advice and contributes to the group in that way, but nothing that they couldn't, in principle, come up with on their own. And I feel like not quite enough to justify his existence for the purpose of this book. And the process of establishing him beforehand involves some really boring... Okay, that brings me to a problem with this book, which is that it has the same problem one of the same problems as Hidden Empire. Hidden Empire is a piece of shit, unlike this. Or at least compared to this. But it has one problem kind of in common with Hidden Empire, which is that it likes to... You're reading along, you're interested in the plot, and this oh, here's 10 pages of no one you've ever met before. Enjoy boredom. And I mean that, something in excess of 75% of the book is focused on F. And anything that cuts away from him, or things that very directly relate to him, is generally quite boring, especially the characters that we only cut to a couple of times, whose perspectives we honestly don't necessarily need. Because we don't follow them with equal emphasis or equal attention, but in this book, that 4 people survived the plane crash, and they don't walk off the plane. They're awake, and they're taken away to the hospital, and then they go home stupidly. By the way, if I were, let me mention this is a serious plot hole. If I were in an airplane where all but 4 people died, and I was one of those 4 people, And now, and I had been found like unconscious or paralyzed and brought to I would want to stay in that hospital. I would want to go home. Because, especially later when shit starts happening to them and they start feeling sick, like, hello? Hospital. And a lot of that is perpetrated by this fucking, oh my gosh, this character. I initially kind of labeled this book as sexist because it has a character who does not top the Mage Imperator in regards to hatred, but who is fucking insufferable during the small portion of the novel while she's there. She's as good as dead. Not too long into it, because she's one of the survivors, so she turns into a vampire. And vampires in this are, at least freshly turned ones, are pretty mindless. Though they're not nominal. They're not just blood-sucking zombies, which I'll elaborate upon that later. They do have vampiric traits. So basically she is significantly responsible for the end of the world. Well, no, that's not fair, but she's stupid and she's really mean. Like, I really just have to tell you that how mean she is because that just kind of comes out through the course of her dialogue and through the course of her internal monologue. She's just a mean person, a lot like Catelyn Stark from A Game of Thrones. As for how stupid she is, see my earlier comments about the hospital. She's a tort lawyer who intends to sue the airline, and that's all fine and well. Make sure you don't die first. Let's see what else. Yeah. Okay, about the vampires thing, this is something I liked about it, which is that I went into this thoroughly expecting these characters to be vampires instead of zombies, only insofar as they sucked blood instead of eating flesh and weren't rotting. I expected those to be the only differences. And of course they would be fast, which some zombies are fast. So I'm sorry, brain fried. But no, these guys are firstly weak against sunlight, which is highly optional in vampire fiction today, including good vampire fiction. Because like a good Being Human is a TV show, but it's good, involves vampires, and completely ignores the sunlight thing. I don't think it's even mentioned. But the vampires here, they can't cross running water without a human escort, which that's actually pretty obscure. The only reason I know that that's a vampire thing at all is because of Scooby-Doo Down Under. Or at least I think that's what that special was called. But yeah. Let's see. Characters. Let's talk about characters. F, I liked him. He had something of a character. He had a good character arc, kind of, as he learned to be more responsible or something. But the thing is that I don't know about that, maybe I'm just making that up somehow right now, because he's really, like, we're told that he's irresponsible at the beginning, but for the most part, everything we see here where he can't get around to things is entirely not his fault. We're told in vague terms about past incidents. Where he's like missed meetings and such. But we don't see such a thing happen wherein it's his fault. We see he's in a custody battle with his wife, with his ex-wife, who, by the way, she's kind of mean-spirited also at first, like Caitlin. But by the end, we see enough depth in her that it's kind of forgivable, whereas we never see depth in the lawyer chick. She's a vampire before she has any chance to develop beyond her first impression, basically, as a character. She gets, I think, she gets probably about 3 scenes, maybe 4, that aren't her as a vampire. Everything in this regarding the solar eclipse is pretty much completely pointless. They should have just taken those chapters out completely, removed all reference to the solar eclipse, and they would literally not have to alter anything else about this book. Like, it's 585 pages long. It does not need padding. Let's see. I'm trying to think. The Holocaust is important in here. One of the characters is a Holocaust survivor, and it is respectful about that. Its treatment of race, because it has a very major Latino character. Now, given this name being on here, it's probably not my place to criticize the portrayal, but why does he have to be a juvenile delinquent? Like, I assumed, when I first encountered him, I assumed they would do kind of like a dual protagonist thing where Chuck Hogan would be writing the F parts, and Guillermo del Toro would be writing the Gus parts. But no, because Gus is, I would say, probably a little under 10% of the book is devoted to him, which is not all that much. He's definitely not like an equal secondary protagonist. I also love, there's a line in here toward the end near the climax where they're about to battle the master vampire, where F, because his ex-wife is damseled, basically declares that this is his fight, when the Holocaust survivor I mentioned earlier, his story is that he's basically known about, he learned about vampires like while in a concentration camp, because the vampires were attacking people in the camp. Even though there's nothing, it's handled tastefully, because there's, like, I mean, I'm not going to completely reject out of hand all storytelling which claims that vampires did the Holocaust, but they did avoid that, and so they did avoid that. But nonetheless, the vampires benefited off of the Holocaust once it was already happening. And he learned about them from that. And his entire life has been building up to him fighting with the Master, which is the evilest of evil vampires in this book. His entire life has been building up to this. And the thing is that he's like, I think it's just because of I think it's more the age thing, but I almost get the sense it's a racial thing. F's whiteness is entitling him to the protagonist role. I mean, I can't help but get the sense of, even though his portrayal is really not offensive in any other respect, in that one moment, I get the sense that here I am not able to remember his name, but that the Professor Satrakian, I opened the page right up to it, Satrakian is kind of, ethnic, I don't know, maybe not. That's certainly not what they intended. Maybe I'm just maybe I was just kind of looking, I was kind of snarking to myself in my mind as I read it accidentally. Maybe on purpose. I don't know. I mean, I didn't make a conscious effort to dislike this book, and I did like it, because the best thing about it is that it's a page turner. You just want to keep reading because you're interested and you want more and you want to know what happens next. And there's tension, which makes it all the more annoying when it cuts away from the plot you're invested in. Feel like, oh, remember that annoying lawyer chick you hate? 15 pages. Or, oh, you know the exterminator whose name you don't remember? 8 pages. And before, I'm going to mention it one more time, then I'll move on to my next point. With the juvenile delinquent Latino, I mean, again, but, I mean, I'm okay with Latino characters, including male characters, this isn't a Latino thing, this is more of a Black and Latino thing. This is a people of color who aren't Asian thing. Or Arab. Or Native. So yeah, Black and Latino thing. Wherein it's I don't mind a juvenile, he's 18, an 18-year-old Black character who's a criminal, but good God, every one of them is. And I feel like this adds to that. It's kind of like objectionable and offensive tropes in fiction and stereotypes aren't about any one example. They're about the aggregation of all of them and the lack of exceptions. The only fictional character I can think of. Actually, no, I was about to say that the only fictional character I can think of who is Black or Latino and not a criminal and who's about that age is Cody from my own web series, but no. Actually, it's kind of stupid of me to say that Cody isn't a criminal because he totally is. Because he's a monster and he eats people's souls. But he has there's circumstances around why he has to. He's definitely not a traditional juvenile delinquent, but he's definitely a criminal. Even though you could argue that most of the actions he commits are morally justifiable. Anyways. Okay, the other point I wanted to bring up. There's this thing that happens, especially early on, but it crops up throughout the thing. It's this hilarious purple prose. Let me see if I can read you some. Hold on. It was a specific scene that made me break out into laughter in this thing. That was my mom, by the way. I'm sorry about that. There's nothing I can do. Because if I locked my door, they would just knock on it. Because I realized something like that happened in the last one too. I just saw a mention of the Yankees here, and I realized that Steve Shive's hatred of the Yankees has very slightly rubbed off on me, even though I have absolutely no reason to feel that way. Hold on. I like Zach. I like the character Zach. I'll try to make other comments while I try to find it. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Nope, that's an F section. Come on, I may have passed it. Pretty sure it was this happened. The lawyer I mentioned that I didn't like, apparently her name is Joan Luss. I just saw that. There's a text here. This isn't what I was talking about. It says Yanks 4 sucks 2. Great seats. Wish you were here, Z. It's GR8 and then another T on the end. So it's great, or like great, great. But let me say, though, Yankees is a stupid team name because a Yankee is just a person from the North. That's not intimidating at all. Like, I mean, I guess, like, I mean, I'm not a baseball fan, I'm just saying. And the New York Yankees are technically the best team as far as I know statistically. So, I mean, they have that going for them. So, Yankees, no need to flame me. But I mean, I guess I'm nominally a Cardinals fan, even though I don't actually give a fuck about baseball. And I guess I'm one to talk because Cardinals are birds, like normal sized birds that are kind of pretty. And so I guess technically a Yankee is more intimidating than that. Come to think of it, isn't Yankee a really derogatory term? Like, like really derogatory. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, I've heard it used kind of internally, but I've also heard it used kind of in a slurish way. I'm not, the passage I'm looking for that's worth this, or that might not be worth much more. It's a woman who I'm not sure ever showed up again. Oh, fuck it. Who I'm not sure ever showed up again as she approaches the plane with the vampires in it. It has this hilarious purple prose. And I guess you'll just have to buy the book and read it for yourself, which you should totally all do, by the way, to see what I'm talking about, because I can't seem to find it. And it's that kind of thing happens regularly toward the beginning. It gets rare toward the end. Yeah. And then the only other thing I really need to bring up is the ending to the book. See, the problem with the ending, I'm going to spoil the ending, by the way. Same thing as Animal Farm. The bad guy wins, and it's not satisfying. At least not as satisfying as it could have been. Like, it leaves you wanting more, but they totally could have continued the story and have the bad guy die in this. So it's not like they needed to, because this is the first part in a trilogy. So it came out in 2009. They stopped doing that. They stopped doing individual books with their own self-contained stories years ago. Those don't come out anymore. But there are 7 Vampire Masters. This is about 1. So he totally could have died and have it continue. Like, let me just think. Let me just brainstorm all of the ways that the story could have continued. They could have had some of the other 6 Vampire Masters start doing shit in the next one. Like, they might follow logic along the lines of, well, we were content to just remain reserved, but everyone knows about us now, so fuck it, may as well take over the world. Which they kind of do at the end anyway. So I don't see why they need the Master to get away. They could have had the human, Eldritch Palmer. Yes, his first name is actually Eldritch. They could have had him, and like, it didn't seem to be a nickname. Like, is Eldritch a name? I'm Googling something else. Just a second. Okay, I'll Google that afterwards. Okay, what I was going to say was, okay, they could have had Eldritch Palmer be turned and have him continue the story as a significant villain. Maybe that wouldn't have worked because he doesn't really have a motivation to want to take over the world. But at the same time, though, they don't really need a leader at this point. Like, the plague has started. It doesn't need a leader anymore. Like, they seem to operate under the logic that killing the master will stop the plague. Not really. Not if all that has to happen is that one of the vampires becomes advanced enough that he regains enough intelligence, because the vampires become stupid and then become smart again, or they become like ravenous to the point where they don't really talk and then become smart again. All that has to happen is that a vampire survives that long enough to leave Manhattan, get onto the mainland, and then everyone's just kind of fucked. So yeah, that could have gone well, or that could have been done better, I guess. So yeah, in conclusion, as I used to say on my old book review channel, which you shouldn't watch because it's terrible, this book is good. It has some problems. It drags at parts. It has some hilarious purple prose. It has some plot holes, and it ends on a note that is less sad, but it's still totally worth checking out. Though the fact that you now know that the master gets away, I'm sorry about that, because that will probably significantly hurt your enjoyment of it. It won't completely ruin it for you. It's still worth getting. And I should mention, by the way, that you shouldn't be watching these before you've read the books, which I suppose isn't a problem because no one watches these anyway. Anyway, so teasing the next one then. I decided I was torn between the book I'm about to show you, and Interview with the Vampire. I just didn't want to read a second dark vampire novel in a row. I felt like I would be vampired out halfway through Interview with a Vampire, and then I would just not enjoy the second half of Interview with a Vampire. So I went with something I'm reasonably certain I'm going to like. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, number 3, Titan's Curse. And if you want to see me, I'll do book vlog. I'll do sort of a short, maybe shorter little version of my opinion on the first 2 Percy Jackson books, because I read them before I started doing this, and this book vlog series is just me vlogging about the books I would be reading anyway. So yeah, I'm not gonna reread those for you people. So anyways, that's done with that. The book portion of this is probably over. Or here, let's see if I want to respond to the quotes. Yeah, just generic positive comments, which I don't really disagree with. Okay, though someone Ray Carcillo calls the passages amazingly descriptive. I kind of have to disagree. I kind of have to disagree with that sort of because when this thing goes for prose, it genuinely is hilarious. Like talking about how like fucking airplanes look like corpses and shit. It's hysterical. It made me burst out laughing. So, anyways, the book portion of this vlog is now over. We're just going to look through, because I grew curious. We're now going to look through all of the baseball team names in the MLB. There's only 30 of them, at least as of 2011, which is the list I found Googling. And we're just going to see how many of them make sense. The team names. Okay. New York Yankees doesn't make sense. Yankee, just a guy, that's just a dude from the North. Like, that's not necessarily even like a Union soldier. That's just a dude. Not intimidating. Philadelphia Phillies. What the fuck is a Philly? Boston Red Sox. What the fuck is a Red Sox? And it's X, so I'm right to say a Red Sox. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Holy shit, that's fucking awesome. That's... It's based out of Anaheim, so... Yeah, the jerseys just say Angels, but I'm going to pretend that it's called Angels of Anaheim. And pretend that Anaheim is a fantasy realm because it sounds like one. And that makes it the fuck... That's the winner so far. Chicago White Sox. Again, what the fuck is a White Sox? So that's... Chicago Cubs. That's intimidating. Cubs. Like, the definitionally weakest form of any given predatory animal. The New York Mets. What the fuck is a Met? 6-1. San Francisco Giants. Okay. That's acceptable. 6-2. The Minnesota Twins. That's not fucking intimidating. 7-2. The Detroit Tigers. All right. 7-3. St. Louis Cardinals. All concede the point, even though that's nominally my team. All concede the point. 8-3. The Los Angeles Dodgers. Yeah, 9-3. The Texas Rangers, all right, 9-4. Colorado Rockies, because like the idea of a team name is that it's a plural noun because each one is what is like that. So like each of the Cardinals is a Cardinal. Each of the Cubs is a Cub. Each of the Yankees is a Yankee. So by that logic, it's going to go 10-3. Or let me check. Rangers. 10-4 because each Rocky, that doesn't make sense. Atlanta Braves, 11-4. Brave is not a noun. Seattle Mariners. That's tough. That's kind of in the middle, because I mean that's vague. I'll be generous and I'll say 11-5. Milwaukee Brewers 12-5. What the fuck is it? Baltimore Orioles. What the fuck is an Oriole? Yes, the fuck is an Oriole? I'm gonna look at the article. I have to see the name. Do you know what? No, I would have to dig around. And that's not fucking worth it. I think I'm 12-5, so 13-5. Cincinnati Reds 14-5. Houston Astros 14-6. Oakland Athletics. What the fuck? That sounds like the name of the fitness center. I'm going to stop keeping score. The Washington Nationals. Again, that's just a dude here. No. Toronto Blue Jays, same as Cardinals. It's just a fucking bird. Miami Marlins? Really? You have before you every fish ever, and you go for fucking Marlins. You could be the Sharks. You could be the Barracudas. You could be the Megalodons. You could be the Liopleurodons. You could be the Chronosauri. You could be the fucking octopi. You could be the fucking giant squids. I mean, okay, granted, some of those aren't fish. You could be whatever fucking sea creature you have. You could be any fish. You could be any sea creature, because you're in Miami. You could be any sea creature. Marlins? Fucking Marlins? Arizona Diamondbacks, all right, fair enough. Cleveland Indians, hey, looks like there's a baseball Redskins and no one noticed. San Diego Padres, okay, that just means fathers in Spanish, and if it was the San Diego Fathers, that would, no. Nah, sorry. Pittsburgh Pirates, fine. The Tampa Bay Rays, which Rays? Because if that's a manta ray, I can kind of get behind that. If that's, I can get behind that. Rays aren't particularly intimidating animals, but they're interesting ones. And then the Kansas City Royals. Is acceptable, I guess. I suppose the ideal baseball name would be something like, I don't know, let me think of a good one. I don't know, maybe like okay, because I have a mascot in my mind. I need to pick city. I don't know, the fucking the okay, let's say the Jefferson City Laser Tyrannosaurus, or the Jefferson City Laser Robot Tyrannosaurs. That's the perfect baseball team name. Anyone want to use that? Well, actually, it would be St. Louis Jefferson City Razor Tyrannosaur, or wait, no, the St. Louis Laser Robot Tyrannosaurs. They are giant robot tyrannosaurs that shoot lasers, and that is the perfect baseball mascot. And so, with that out of the way, I'll be back to you in probably about half the time it took me to read that book with this. No promises, though. See ya.